sleep a lot.
Why, Eric?
The dreams is...
Why?
My God, the dreams.
Rachel.
Firstly, congratulations on the film. I called it a little bit earlier this year, and I spoke to Russell for the UK release. So I've had a second viewing this week, just to sort of refresh my memory, and I enjoyed it just as much second time around. And the third thing I wanted to ask you was, by my reckoning, from what I've read, I think this is your first horror film. So my question is I would guess that you've had a lot of stuff like that come across your desk in the past. What was it about Shepherd that made you want to do it? And I know you made Gemma, the casting director, very happy, because I understand you were her first choice.
All right. I didn't know that. That's very nice to know. To say that I've had many come over my desk is probably not true, but there's been one or two that I haven't done for sure. I was on holiday, man, when I read it for the first time. You know, it's an odd setting to read this film. There's quite a juxtaposition there, and I was just completely immersed in it, and I felt very empathetically drawn to Eric, and having lived in his shoes for the hour and a half that I read it, I kind of, the residue of that experience kind of stuck with me, if I'm honest. And for me, that's it for anything. You know, I'm drawn to social realism. I think that's why I got into acting. I didn't grow up watching movies at all. My exposure to films has very much been in my adult life, and so I was already at drama school. I was already studying that when I kind of, the first time I put on a film in my own company I was at drama school. It just wasn't what I did as a teenager. And so I kind of found acting from the inside out, I guess. And what drew me to it was people. I just find people eternally fascinating and incredible, and just want to delve into that. So if something doesn't have social realism within it, it's not going to grab me in the same way as it might someone else who's a massive horror fan or a massive whatever fan, you know. So the fact that Eric really stuck with me, and the feeling of that stuck with me was the key to unlock the door, I guess. Then I was really impressed by what Russell had done. I felt like there was a really sensitive mapping out of the psyche of Eric, and the disintegration of that psyche through this film. And I often think in cinema, perhaps that's not explored in the depth that it needs to be or should be. And I felt like Russell had done that with a delicacy and a sensitivity that I was really, really impressed by and moved by. And then the challenge as an actor to try and helm this on my own, naively and probably ridiculously, going, I want to take that challenge on, rather than much more wisely going, that's going to be really intimidating. But also for Russell to take all of those pieces and put it inside the genre piece as well, I just thought, well, this is an incredible opportunity to really learn about, if I learned about acting or movies, should we say, from the inside out, say, this is an opportunity to learn about this genre from the inside out. And I guess it's a bit like, I can't do cryptic crosswords. I've never sat down and learned the rules, but I guess once you know how to do them, you can see them in a different light, I guess. And for me, I feel like that about horror now. I've kind of gone, oh, okay, I get it. I get what this is about now. And or like jazz or whatever it might be, you suddenly hear it differently, you see it differently. And to have experienced horror from the inside out with something I could hang my hat on was a gift. So I was delighted to be part of it, I have to say. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's something I discussed again with Russell, is that the great thing with horror is that you can, ground. You can take these sort of grounding elements, and in Shepherd's case, kind of these themes of guilt and loss and things like that, and surround it with these really fantastical elements, and yet it still works exceptionally well, and you can tell any sort of story through that medium, while all this kind of maybe dark and crazy things going on. And you mentioned about obviously finding that grounding, and I wondered how easy it was for you to kind of get into Eric Black's headspace as the character, and whether or not that grounding was maybe something that you would have drawn experience from as well.
Yeah, very interesting questions. I mean, in terms of the experience, I have to be honest, I approached it like I approach any character. And for me, I definitely sign up to, I don't sign, as an actor, I don't seem to work or sign up to the Stanislavski ideology of acting where you bring your own personal experience to it. I'm very much more of his contemporary, the Michael Chekhov ideology, which is more about finding the gateway and then stepping into the imagination, you know, and living within that. But also add to that, for me, everything is rhythmical, everything is physical. That animal element is everything for me with my characters. That's what takes over. So once I find that rhythm of the character, rather than it being necessarily into the imagination like Chekhov talks about, for me it's more about once you find that rhythm, once you're in there, ride it, almost like a treadmill, ride it and be open to whatever comes. Don't try and control your performance too much, just stay on this rhythm, and that's important. Obviously so therefore, no, it wasn't a case of me going, well, when this happened in my world, I felt like this, so I'll make Eric be this. And I didn't have a ton of time. Post the holiday, I was on when I read it, I had about 3 weeks to prepare. So I went to people in my life that I felt like could, you know, be touch points that and go, shine a light on certain aspects of what I wanted to portray as recognizably, honestly as I could. And then it was about kind of trying to put my body through whatever Eric's body would be going through as much as I could. There's far more to it than that, but that was paramount. And so when we were on the island filming, for example, I took the initial hotel I was in the little town Tobermory where most of the crew was staying. And if I did go for a pint that night to try and wind down, you'd meet people. I took myself to another hotel on the other side of the island, and I was pretty much the only person staying there apart from one of the guests at one point. And I wanted to stay in that isolation. I'm a very social creature. And so that was impactful for me. And I wanted to live in that as much as I could. Being on the island itself, if we were on the top of a mountainside, I'd go the other side of the mountainside and try and be with nature. Because the wonder I found with horror, like you said, you can take things and make them so much bigger. It actually, that I think opens audiences up to being able to be taken down journeys they maybe don't want to go down. It's like laughter. You make an audience laugh, you can make them cry. If you have an audience feeling something very visceral, which fear is, or whatever it might be, you can actually then tell a story which is visceral equally. And there's nothing more visceral or more powerful than nature. So actually, to try and stand alone and face nature and feel what Eric would feel, I wanted to do all of those things, because then when you bring your obviously I bring my personal individual understanding of the world to him, but I wanted my body to not be cheating it, because I felt like that's the most important thing, particularly with something like panic or whatever it may be. That's animal, that's physical often, and how it manifests. I wanted me to be there, to not be cheating that. I felt that was important. I don't know if I've achieved it. I hope I have, but that's what I tried to do, you know.
Breathing space, Mr. Black. Just that, right? The old cottage. That's your home now.
It's just me and you, Baxter. It's just me and you.
I think that's comes through in your performance, which you know, for me personally was fantastic, because it's obviously just yourself and the dog, of course, but you know, you were incredibly engaging screen presence, and that was fabulous. Just very quickly, I know we're almost out of time, but you say that you've kind of taken yourself off to another hotel, and I understand that your approach in terms of your performance is that you weren't sort of rehearsing with everybody else as well. You were kind of keeping your ideas guarded until you actually shot the scene. Was that something that you do as a general rule, or is it something that felt really right for the role of Eric?
I think no, not as a general rule, because normally you're not alone in telling that story from an acting perspective, and it's very important when you're working with actors that you're on the same page. Yes, there's got to be certain things that you can challenge. You know, you can do things differently. you can try and keep something alive, but you can't not rehearse. You got to, you know, but in this instance, there was the potential to do that from an acting perspective. There also had to be a lot of trust that I had to, you know, I'm incredibly grateful to the crew, particularly Richard Stoddard, the cinematographer, and his team, the camera team, Sarah, the focus puller. They were just amazing. I could lean on them at any point. My first ever job, Richard was the Stoddy, we call him. I know I call him Richard Stoddy, was the camera operator. So my first exposure to being acting in front of a camera for real was with Stoddy. I learned the rhythm of that with Stoddy. So we had a kind of natural language, I felt. And they were amazing at going with that. And you kind of build it takes a bit of time to build that communication, but you would get to a place where, hopefully we got to a place where structurally, technically, they would have what they would need, and you keep that freedom. Also, every night Russell would send me what do you call them now, like the sketches of the scenes,
storyboards,
yeah. And so actually that was the rehearsal in the truth, because, you know, often when you're on a set, the rehearsal is the blocking and the movement and this and this. The rehearsal was kind of done there structurally. Me and Russell had that communication. I'd seen exactly what he structurally wished to see. And so, like, we had this trust in one another that I knew the kind of the skeleton of what we had to get to, and therefore the flesh was my job, if you like, to flesh out this performance. And I sometimes think that if you know the skeleton, the flesh needs to be instinctive, and it felt like that had to be in the camera. What if it was instinctive and we didn't get it? And so it felt very edgy of your seat working, but me and Russell were very on side with that from the get-go, and Stoddy and his team were amazing. And no, I can't say I've worked like that before. Or, you know, I'm someone who loves that, but you rarely get an opportunity to be the only actor, you know. And so it was nice to delve into that and just be free to go, I don't know what's going to happen here. I know the dot to dot, but I'm just going to go for it, and hopefully it works, you know. And there was something quite freeing about that. And actually, I learned a lot about doing this film, man. I learned a lot about me as an actor, and I learned a lot about me as a person. That's the truth. Like, it was like, you know, you go and sit in a hotel for 7 weeks on your own. You come out of it, you know yourself. You know, like, it's just that's the truth.
Well, that's great. I think that's us now. Time. It's been an absolute pleasure, Tom. Best of luck. I think you've got is it the British coming up? Soon?
The English, yeah.
English, sorry, I was close. Thank you so much. Best of luck with that, and maybe we'll get to speak about that project soon.
Nice one, mate. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much, Ash.
Likewise. Take care, Tom.
Quick up! What? Quick up!